this erudite group, not only are they sort of coming into Dauntless with like supplies and sort of building a relationship with them, but they're also looking for divergence, because obviously, this character I referred to, the Kate Winslet character is she's almost like she kind of reminds me of the character in Elysium, the Jodie Foster character. There's this very, very tough woman, who's got this very, very, very no
very
nonsense,
analytical in her thought process, very dictatorial. Yeah.
Dictatorial, absolutely committed to the cause, with absolute conviction. And she even says that at one point, I'm willing to die for my ideals. And I mean, she there's a number of interesting pieces of dialogue where she says things like, human nature is the enemy, and independent choice is the enemy, and we must eradicate these things to have a free, functioning, peaceful society. And so, this is what we see is her beginning to form this relationship with the Dauntless faction, them being the warrior class, in order to effect some kind of takeover. And this is where the film basically builds to, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. The relationship between the scientific class and the warrior class. And as you're saying, the leader of the erudite scientist class there is spouting off some things against pitting human nature as the big problem, and all just the typical stuff you hear from your favorite transhumanists, saying that human nature is flawed and it has to be changed. If it's not, we will digress into some sort of terrible situation. If we do go about redesigning human nature and getting rid of all its problems, then we're gonna a utopia is in view for if we go down that path. And the technocracy is the way forward. And what better tool to enforce this plan of action than the warrior class? If you can somehow get them on your side, they are the enforcers. So why don't you just get them right in line with your technocratic ideals there? Get things rolling.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting part about this is although the warrior class, ostensibly, they're committed to taking orders. They pledge allegiance to whichever legitimate ruling body happens to exist at the time. So whoever wants them to go and do something, go and arrest this person or shoot that person, they're going to do it. However, in Erudite, in terms of their wanting to, effect a coup and take over the government and take out basically Candor and Abnegation, what they have to do is actually use a basic form of mind control on the Dauntless faction to do so. And so they come in one night with these drugs. And basically what they do is to tell all the Dauntless members, right, well, we're about to go on a mission here, but we've got to put tracking chips in you before you go on this mission for safety reasons. But what it really is actually a truth serum, or a suggestibility type drug. And so all the Dauntless members basically injected with this drug, which makes them completely suggestible and makes them links all their brains up to some sort of centralized computer system, so that they're kind of operating in a hive mind type situation. They're walking around sort of like zombies, just taking orders from some computer somewhere somehow. The technology isn't explained really, but I mean that's the basic premise we've got here. Is they're injected with something that turns them into zombies, and they take orders from a central computer which has been set up by Erudite in Dauntless headquarters there, and that is how this sort of coup comes about. But because certain people, such as the protagonist and her love interest, happen to be divergents, this drug doesn't work on them. And so they go out into society with the rest of all these zombies, having to pretend as if they are zombies when actually they're still retaining their independent thought, and begin this, basically like a martial law situation where the Dauntless are going around arresting pretty much everyone. I think
they're going after specifically Abnegation, the selfless governing class, because again they're the ones in charge of the government at the moment, and Erudite wants to become in charge of the government because set up their technocracy. They have to get rid of first they discredited Abnegation and made them look bad, and then they just all out take them out. That's what this part is.
Yeah, that's you're right actually. I remember now they marched specifically towards the part of town where abnegation, rather than just arresting everyone. It's just this sort of they all sort of march towards there, and they're literally pulling people out of their houses, getting them down their knees, and you know, of course, like any Hollywood movie, it all leads up to a sort of a last-minute climax where, Dauntless rather, we've got all the abnegates sitting down on their knees, crying, about to be shot in the head. They've got their guns out, they're ready to pull the trigger, and the leading protagonist managed to break into the control center and kill the Erudite leader, well, actually, no, she doesn't kill her. She injects her with the truth serum, the suggestibility serum, and then tells her to, switch the program down and stop all this madness. And that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
So another cheesy,
yes, very silly
Hollywood ending.
Very silly. Yeah.
How many times have we seen this?
Yeah. It was all the ideas in between, though. It wasn't like the way that the movie, that sort of silliness. Yeah. But there were tons of ideas which are interesting. I mean, we have, in essence, a transhuman army of super soldiers carrying out an evil technocratic plot to overthrow the government here.
Yeah, yeah.
So a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's what it is at its core. It's a kind of a transhuman, like you say, a transhumanist paramilitary force, who are all under mind control in some kind of hive mind system, being controlled by a bunch of technocrats, a bunch of the intelligentsia. People in white coats and offices and whatnot, and computer systems and stuff like that. I mean, it's such a this meme has been trotted out so many times in so many films.
Yeah. Well, it's accurate though, because it's sort of it's the military-industrial complex. You've got the scientific class, all the companies like the Raytheons and the Boeings and their employees, all those sorts of that whole system, that would be the Erudite class, I would say. And then you've got the warrior class being the military. That's where the hardware that's built by the scientific class is put to use. So that's what the military-industrial complex is. It's those two sections of society working in tandem.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I mean, obviously, when I was sort of talking there, I was just sort of saying that we've seen this meme so many times. It's such a typical Hollywood ending. But as you say, it's very, very true. I mean, this is a direct reflection of the power structure that we have in the world today, with an intelligentsia, with people like academics, in universities and various sort of corporate think tanks and military think tanks coming up with strategy and policy. Having very, very strong convictions in what they're doing, and then basically using the warrior class, the military-industrial complex, all its soldiers and all its technology to do their bidding for them. Is essentially what we've got going on here. I mean, obviously it's much more complex than that, and there are many other groups involved in different parts of the agenda. But I mean, this is what we're seeing in this film is very much a reflection of what's happening now, and I think what we're going to see more and more of in the future in terms of how much more overt this stuff gets.
I was again, it was kind of a pleasant surprise on the ideas that are put in there, ideas I actually agree with and I think are poignant. It makes some of those, and then it raises a lot of questions too. You get the revolutionary idea, and were the filmmakers trying to present these concepts to the audience, which is a young audience? Were they trying? Why were they presenting them with these ideas? Was it to just prepare them for the future? Was it to prepare them to rebel against a real life system, which is indeed corrupt? Are they trying to carry that out? And if that is the case with the filmmakers here, then who are the filmmakers and what are they doing? And questions like this inevitably arise.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with this film. It's kind of ambiguous as to exactly what side of the spectrum or what side of the debate they're really pushing here. It's because we've, in one sense, we're kind of, in some subtle ways, it's kind of led to believe that this kind of caste system is functional in some ways. It's not like absolute horror, put it that way, and like some of the other science fiction or dystopian films. But at the same time, we're also, especially the younger audience who this is directed at, they're goaded heavily into identifying with these divergent protagonists. They're goaded into identifying with the non-conformists, although they're very much conformist in some way because they have their little factions and they all act like they all like one another within their factions, at the same time, it's kind of promoting the idea that it's like that line I referenced before, where the sort of the male co-protagonist or the male whatever is talking about the fact that he's got tattoos of all the different factions and he wants to represent the best parts of all of them. He doesn't want to be categorized as any one thing. And so there's kind of a weird dichotomy, and at the same time you've also got the fact that there's sort of the way they present the whole concept of revolution. I mean, I suppose it's more of like a coup d'état, but it's I don't know about that. It's strange. Are they preparing people for revolution? Are they saying revolution's so something to be avoided? I mean, what's going on here? Yeah,
is it a warning against technocracy and scientific dictatorship that could happen in the real world? I mean, clearly we get the erudite class as being evil here in this movie. That's plain and simple. We can see that. The scientists, which are in the movie, the general public kind of see them as the smart ones, and they're smart and they know everything, and they're their brains are so great. And that sort of general opinion of the scientific class, I would say, is the general opinion in modern day. That's how people think. Are like, scientists are smart. Yeah. They know a lot of things.
They're smarter. Yeah.
They're more smart.
They're more smarter. Yeah. It's just the worship of the new white-coated priesthood, as some people have described it. It's like you tag the word science into anything these days, and people just go, "Oh, okay, it must be true." You could say it's like Bertrand Russell in some of his books talked about the fact that with enough conditioning and with enough programming, you can convince a child, but before the age of 10, that snow is black, the sky was black, or whatever.
2 + 2 is 5, that sort of stuff.
2 + 2 is 5, all that kind of stuff, and it's.
Well, again, this is a perfect example of a real condition in our modern day world, and this film really breaks out a lot of them. I guess that's what impressed me, is that they pull out a lot of poignant ideas.
Yeah, lots of poignant ideas in this film. Lots of things that relate to the society that we're currently living in many ways, and the type of society that we seem to be moving into. If we were to go by the reports and the predictions of all the big think tanks and military-industrial organizations and whatnot, And again, we get back to the question of, why are these films being put out? And they're very much like films like The Hunger Games. We've got this sort of dystopian future. I mean, that's kind of different in that film because it's a very, very dichotomized society. You've literally got the super rich elite, and then you've just got the absolute subsistence dwellers. You've got people living in absolute poverty and ruin who can't even feed themselves and who are starving, dying of disease, and living in shacks and all the rest of it, versus the people living in these sort of enclosed cities, just living absolutely indulgent lifestyles. Whereas this film's a bit different. You sort of got you've got a caste system which is kind of graded in terms of the lifestyle you lead.
What's interesting? It just occurred to me is that all of these teen trilogy novels turned into movies have a heroine. It's a female character. Yeah, that is the lead character.
Yeah, that's one thing that I found very interesting because. It kind of ties into a lot of other films as well, because this is something we're seeing in many other Hollywood films. Is the hero is actually a female now, in so many films. I mean, she's the one kicking all the ass. She's the one with the machine gun. She's the one doing all the crazy hand-to-hand combat stuff, and she's the tough one. She's all dressed in black and whatnot, and she's the one that's the smartest one. And I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it is kind of a role reversal in many ways. And this is something we see in so many films now, including this one, is the tough female, and we're also seeing a lot more sort of violence, which you wouldn't see in other films, like women fighting women and men fighting women as well, like women being beat up by men. I mean, we actually see this in this film. This is a film directed at young people, where a girl is getting the crap kicked out of her by really well-trained guy.
Yeah,
it's just,
yeah. You would never see that in a film 15 years ago. It would be
no way.
It'd be
No
unacceptable to put that in there.
That would be unacceptable in like an R18 film 10 years ago.
It'd be unacceptable in like an R-rated film almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing how people can be upgraded and how they adapt and conditioned to accept basically what you might call a loss of morality and a general sort of debauchery and debasement.